So here we are. I guess we're in CNN Tower, aren't we? Where are we here? Where would we be if we were booking for WCW?
If we were booking for WCW, we would be one of two places. We would be at the offices on Log Cabin Drive, which were north suburbs of Atlanta. Actually, it's kind of like in the middle of nowhere. It's like the office was like you see Titan Towers.
Yeah.
Very prominent, brand, WWE, stuff and all that. Our office complex was just like a building in the woods. It didn't even say like a very prominent like WCW or, it was in wasn't even really an industrial area. It was just a building in the middle of the woods by train tracks.
All right, I don't want to book there. Where's the other building?
Okay,
Where would
so
the other building
when we would go to not the opposite side of town, but like probably 10 minutes away, we'd go to a Hyatt hotel. And
Really?
get a conference room for the day.
I thought it'd be in the luxurious CNN Tower in downtown.
No, we never went downtown. The WCW is separate.
The bastard child.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it had nothing to do with CNN. If somebody had to go to CNN Towers, they were probably in trouble. So like that. None of the boys ever had to go, but like office personnel would say, "Hey, we're going to CNN for the day" or something. So.
Well, my dreams are shattered, but I'm going to press on nonetheless. I'm with Glenn Gilberti, Disco Inferno, and he was, as you'll hear, a booker or a writer, and he'll tell us exactly what the difference is. Thank you, first of all, for agreeing to come and share your wisdom.
Well, thank you so much. Am I supposed to say that I'm doing this against my will? Maybe like
you can. You can.
You blackmailed me into to revealing details about my life if I don't do this, but I'll say that I came on as a guest.
The pictures of the goats. Right. Well, this is, very few human beings are able to be on a show called Guest Booker. You have to have booked for a major wrestling federation. So it's 1% of 1% of 1% of the world. Right. But you are one of those 1%. I want to start, as we usually do, before we talk about anything specific or any issue, I want to talk about the person. So I want to know if you considered yourself a booker or a writer. We've talked to Vince Russo. There is a difference. We've talked to Bruce Pritchard. There is a difference. Jim Cornette definitely thinks there's a difference. What is the difference, and who are you?
If you talk to like Hollywood people, they have the think tanks. People will get together in a room, just creative thinkers, and they will just come up with creative ideas and stuff. I don't consider myself a booker or a writer because I never put pen to paper. The term booker is always kind of like been given the guy that's in charge of the written production or the guy that's in charge of the show. I just always consider myself as like just like an idea guy, a creative idea guy that you stick in the room that either comes up with the idea, helps the idea flow, just like a creative thinker. That's I wouldn't see. So I never said like I. By the way wrestling defines it, I guess I've been a booker, I've been a writer, but like I never thought of myself like that. I'm just an idea guy that just has been in booking committees.
What about the qualities of somebody who you'd consider a good idea guy or booker or writer? What do you need to have to be on a creative team?
To me, it's so simplistic. Ideas. Regardless of whether they're good, they're bad, or whatever they are. If you have ideas, creative ideas, new ideas, things that haven't been done. That's all you really need. One of my mantras when we would sit in the booking meetings, I'd say, one of the cameramen, we'd sit there be shooting the shit, and he would. Can I use foul language?
Fuck okay. Yeah.
Okay, so he'd give an idea. I'd throw it in the meeting, So I've never been. I don't think the creative process you can be egotistical because a good idea is a good idea no matter where it comes from. If you want to use a good idea, who cares who came up with it? You're trying to produce a television show that is entertaining. So whoever comes up with an entertaining idea or has entertaining ideas, that's the qualities that you need, because anybody can watch a wrestling show and see what they saw and book the same way with different characters. The heel wrestles the babyface. The other heel comes out, distracts the baby face. The heel rolls him up or something. Anybody can think of stuff like that. But to think of stories,
right.
Creative characteristics, character development, You know, taking the character and what would he do in this situation? You know, like a lot of guys, they don't know what their character would do. You can get inside their head. What would you do if you were their character, and give them qualities that that they would show on the show? And anybody can do that if you have good ideas or any ideas.
Do you have a booking philosophy?
Yeah, I do. Okay, and my booking philosophy, you know, I mean, I'm everybody knows, like, you know, I'm from the Vince Russo camp of thought. Okay, is that, and he's probably, and maybe if he was been on your show, he's probably repeated this, but I, basically told him this, is that there's never been a book written on wrestling. You know, the book that's been written on wrestling is in the ego of the minds of the people that have done it before us. You know, like the ones that have the book previously and been successful, they think like they wrote the book because they did things that proved successful. But that doesn't mean that's the only thing you have to do. So my philosophy has always been, pro wrestling isn't necessarily it's, you can call it a male soap opera. You can call it, good versus evil, played out on theater, or just, good guy versus bad guy building up to a fight. But in this day and age, in the era of ratings, wrestling is a 3-hour block of television that you have freedom to put whatever you want on it to get people to watch the show.
So you didn't feel confined by what had maybe been considered historically a best practice for wrestling, or certain things that traditional things
right.
that had to happen. You weren't handcuffed to that.
Absolutely.
You were not afraid to go outside the box.
Absolutely not. Like perfect example. Like Paige was an old school guy, and like he said, when like you come up with an idea, and he said Ole Anderson used to say, he's like, just because nobody's ever taken a shit in the middle of the ring doesn't mean you should do it. So it's like, but my thing has always been, the things that you should be doing are the things that have never been done. Because like I think wrestling, because there's been so much of it on TV over the past 15, 20 years, we'll call it, from the start of the Monday Night Wars, is that the fans are not stupid. They've seen these stories played out, and in my opinion, and a lot of times it just looks to them as rerun TV, just with different characters playing the parts. So I am vehemently opposed to any type of booking like that. I would take, whatever the traditional model has been, and if this is what like the heel is supposed to do this or whatever, I would say, well, why don't we do the opposite this time? Because the fan will get swerved, because the fans watching this and they know what's supposed to happen next because they've seen it so many times. So why wouldn't you just do the opposite? Like just a perfect creative example. We like the baby face, the weaker baby face, calls the big heel out to the ring, and the big heel comes down, and the big heel ends up beating up the baby face, and leaving him laying, and like that's back in the day that was heat, But this day, we've seen that angle played out so many times that's not heat. It's like the fans are seeing the guy coming out there and they're going like, we've seen this a million times before. Why can't you see this coming? You're going to get beat up. Right. Don't be stupid, So like my philosophy would be like in the meetings, like, he calls, hey, why doesn't the babyface this one time have a can of mace ready in the back of his pocket? And the heel thinks he's coming out to kick his ass. But why doesn't the babyface for one time kick that guy's ass? Like Jimmy Hart calling out Jeff Jarrett or something. Jeff Jarrett comes out and Jimmy Hart beats up Jeff Jarrett. To me, that's my philosophy. I would rather do that than do the opposite.
Why are fans so uncomfortable with that? Why do people not like the unexpected? A lot of what Vince Russo did there was the unexpected.
Right.
The shock TV, you got to shock people every week. Why is there such a knee-jerk reaction against things that they're not used to?
Because I think the people that are against that are speaking for people that don't agree with what they're saying. Okay, like don't speak for the fan. Okay, the fan will speak for itself. Like the fan wants to be challenged mentally. Like a lot of times, the people say, the fan, this is confusing. I'm like, who is it confusing to?
You're talking about the rest of the internet writers, basically,
or just other people that you work with.
Like
they have tradition, like people that you're working with creatively. They think like this is confusing. I'm like, I'm not confused. I go, you might be confused. I go, maybe there are people that are confused. I go, but don't assume a wrestling fan is as dumb as you're trying to you're trying to treat them as.
Who are some guys that would give you that confusing thing?
Well, just like the writers may say, a lot of the people that review the shows always would do that. So like the torch reviewers, the observer reviewers, I hated that they spoke for the fans.
Right.
And I'm like, just a little sidebar here. I'm like, you can't speak for a fan because you watch a show as a critic. Okay, critics aren't, like Roger Ebert goes to a movie knowing that he has to write a review for it. Me and you go to a movie to enjoy the 2-hour experience and go home and tell somebody, hey, go see this. Yeah. Instead of like, giving it like a dissected analogy of the movie. So the people that have watched wrestling pretty much all their lives and had to watch it to review it, to report on everything, you can't speak for the guy that just wants to turn on the TV at 9 o'clock, or what is it, 8 o'clock these days, 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and just wants to sit back and just watch the show. And when the show's over, turn it off, or put the Sports Center on, and then not even be engaged into it at all until next week when it's on. I watch Game of Thrones. Do you watch Game of Thrones? Well, do you after the show's over? Do you go in the forums, talk about the creative?
I'm sure some people do, though.
Very
passionate viewers,
but they don't speak for us, do they?
No, obviously.
So that's my point. Is that the regular people that just want to be entertained on as is. I don't think people that are in wrestling can speak for them.
Right. If we had two piles here and we had to attach some weight to them, one side is in-ring wrestling action and one side is entertainment, whether that be promos, vignettes, anything that's not happening in the course of a match. Tell me what weight we should have on our show.
80 entertainment, 20 wrestling. But bro, let me give you my background as a fan growing up. I was lucky enough to grow up in Atlanta, Georgia, and what we had was on Saturday nights on Channel 36 in Atlanta. I don't know if you know the name, but maybe you do. Joe Pedicino.
Sure.
Okay, he had the 7-hour wrestling block for 8-9 years. Mm-hmm. There was 7 hours of wrestling, 7 1-hour shows from Memphis, AWA, the Texas company. Sometimes it had Mid-South. The local stuff, just 7 hours from 7 different parts of the country. I would watch that. I would watch WCW Saturday Night. I would watch Tuesday Night Titans. I would watch probably 10 to 12 hours of wrestling a week from the age of 11, 12 on. I grew up as a student of professional wrestling. When I watched the show, and I had I would tape the 7 hours and I watch it with the VCRs and everything. Bro, I fast forward through the matches and get to the finish. I don't care. I wanted to see the progression of stories. I didn't care about the technical aspect of because I didn't. To me, it wasn't wrestling wasn't real. I knew it was a work, but I didn't care how they did it.
So they were more entertainers for you than athletes.
Yeah, they're right. Like I grew up like my favorite wrestler was the Honky Tonk Man. When I got into wrestling, I realized it's wow, this guy doesn't really do much out there. But when I was a fan growing up, I'm like, oh, this guy's really cool. He does stuff. I thought he was a good wrestler. Like technically, So you don't really like I said, and I think that there are a lot of fans like me, okay? But in professional wrestling, in the industry, I don't think you had a lot of fans like me because when I broke into it, these are it's like the kayfabe mentality. These are guys to break into the business back in the day, guys like Arn, Flair and these guys, you had to fight your way into the business.
Right.
Terry Taylor, obviously fast forward today, give a guy $1,500, he's got a ring in his backyard, do some flips and stuff, and everything, you could become a wrestler, So I grew up as a creatively thinking fan of like I would try to guess what the angle would be next week. I want to see where the angle was going. Boy, what would I do? How would I, like I was like booking back then. Like I watched a lot of TV, but I would have this guy come out and, like for all these shows.
So you were interested in the advancement of the angles and how the feuds that were going on, what they were saying about each other each week. But you mentioned Tuesday Night Titans a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah.
Were you also a fan of Andre the Giant sitting on the talk show format, doing his impression of a fish? Did that also count the same as advancing a wrestling angle?
No. That was just like a show. That was just more wrestling watch. But I will say this: like one of the funniest things I ever saw on that show was I don't know if you remember this angle, but like there's things that are done in wrestling today that everybody puts so much of an emphasis on the match. Like they want to see this. They want to see these two guys have a match with each other. They want to see these guys wrestle. It's like people can't wait to see the two performers get in the ring and have the actual match. I want to see like the two guys in the angle. Okay, so like to bring up like the Tuesday Night Titans, I wonder if you ever forget this. Murdoch and Adonis were a tag team.
Sure.
And they were feuding with Chief Jay Strongbow and Jules Strongbow. And do you remember the one where they had where Murdoch and Adonis had been on early in the show? They were kind of obnoxious, they were heels. They brought in Chief and Jules later on the show, and they went outside and they got a bunch of Indians together and did like an Indian dance.
Yes, I do remember that.
And you remember Murdoch and Adonis pulled in, drinking beer with their car, busted the seat and started throwing beer cans after something. To me, that's the stuff I remember. Like that's the entertaining stuff. That's the stuff I'd be like, wow, what that was like, what a great idea that was. But that's the stuff that I liked. So.
Where did your ideas come from? Was it strictly the guys that were involved in the angles, or did you cull ideas from pop culture or shows that you'd seen on TV, music?
Yeah. And the only thing I get a little bit like writer's block on this is just because that's far back. When I was doing it, I don't remember specifically what it was on at the time, but I was like thinking like myself like if a hot show was whatever a hot show was that was like on MTV or a hot pop culture show, I would just think to myself, all right, well, can we get a couple of our guys and put them in characters like that or an environment like that, like the real world setting or whatever it was.
Right.
Obviously, because like when I was in when we were booking a WCW, we study ratings and stuff, and we always try to look, okay, what are the highest rated shows on TV right now for the 18 to 34-year-old male? What are they watching? Well, they're watching Lost. They're watching they're watching thinking shows that have storyline progression, twists and turns. It's like wrestling's kind of like cut and dry. It's drawn in big letters and crayons. You could like you write the angles up, but so I liked just thinking of like what show was it back then? The Larry David show, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I try to think like that. Like how can you start something in a show and bring the thread all the way around, and it comes back to that. That was my philosophy. Like when I watch Larry do the Curb Your Enthusiasm, I say, let's do an angle where that comes around like that, like they do on that show. So I'll just take different things that were cool on TV, and just try to integrate that into the show. Because you have a 3-hour block of TV to fill. Just it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot,
and it's disposable because it's on and then it's gone, and you got to do it again next week,
yeah.
or a few times a week actually. Scripted promos versus letting guys speak for themselves. Where are you on that?
But you know what? This
debate.
I don't even think it's a debate. I think that they script so many guys promos these days that you can just tell that they're not good talkers, and maybe we don't know. Back in WCW, you had guys there were guys we called they'd eat tape. They never had scripted promos. Vince would write a promo out, but he was like, "This is what I want you to say, basically." But put this in your own words.
Gotcha,
what I'm saying? But some guys would read it and they could see themselves. They'd read it, the promo would come out. Okay, they would do that one. But if a guy would say like, hey, I got this, before they started scripting promos, you were kind of up to yourself to deliver. You know, you had to come up with your own promo.
Right.
You know, this is before like Vince started writing.
Sure.
You know, this is back when wrestling had bookers.
Right.
You know, and before we were writing TV. You know, so like let's fast forward. Let's pretend we're not writing TV these days. I think that like a lot of the guys you see on TV, that like if they had to come up with their own stuff, I just don't like it. They don't look at me like I would believe what they're saying. You know. And I think maybe they've probably been trying that with them behind the scenes over the course of time to the point it got just like, guys ate tape. You know, you've got, they had promos for the guys, you know, they try to put stuff in their own words, just does not come across well, and they just basically had to start scripting everybody's promos.
So it's almost out of necessity that I think they probably have to do a lot of that now.
You got to understand, I mean, if you take... If you take the Pro Wrestling Talking Hall of Fame, a Pro Wrestling Interview Hall of Fame, bro, you're gonna have Ric Flair in there,
right?
Of course, you know you're gonna have Hulk Hogan in there, you're gonna have Roddy Piper in there, you're gonna have Macho in there, you know you're gonna have
Don Morocco,
you know, all these guys. As you're getting into 2005 and above, it's like you're going okay. Then you got
maybe Cena.
Cena, yes, very strong, excellent talker.
Yeah.
You know, who else? So
Paul Heyman, but that's
Paul, yeah, right, yeah.
it's
So it's like we've just seen like the disappearance of good talkers.
Yeah.
You know, so the thing is because maybe like the online communities, you know, like or their fans or the people that have you know that write wrestling that like these guys and have championed them and said, you know, these guys are like the next stars and everything, that when, you know, it's like they're giving them a pass that they really can't talk that well and kind of blaming it on, well, they're just doing scripted promos. I mean, like, I'll tell you this, you know, if you can't take a scripted promo for as long as you've been doing this and not make it sound scripted, it's like, you know, that's a hard sell to me that it's the writer's fault. It's like you can't act.
Well, back in the day, they would just throw a manager with you, and he'd be your mouthpiece.
He'd be your mouthpiece.
They don't really do that anymore.
You know.
So give me that weight. You know, we talked about in a TV show how much is entertainment, how much is in ring.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about a talent. Here's a talent. You want to do something with them. What percentage should they be technical, good, 4-star in ring work versus charisma, thinking on their feet? Creative themselves.
What did you grow up watching?
70s, 80s WWE.
70s,
So it
80s,
was this,
WWE.
basically what you mentioned, TNT.
So what were the top guys proficient at?
It was, I think, it was heavily weighted toward. Look at guys like Roddy Piper or the Samoans.
Here's all you had to
charisma.
do. Charisma, and if you looked like you could fight. Right. Throwing punches, throwing kicks. That was top guy wrestling through the 70s, 80s in every territory. Jerry Lawler, the Mid-South, whoever was on top of the Mid-South, you know, guys like, you know, Dick Murdoch, DiBiase and stuff, you know, JYD. They looked like they could fight, you know? We've gone so far away from making it look like two guys build up of an angle, hatred for each other, and getting there and fighting each other, as opposed to, let's see these two guys because they're great technical acrobatic performers, and they're going to give us a 4-star match. You know, which is not progressive. It doesn't progress anything even close to the model that we grew up watching and drew money. And you know, so I mean,
are we alone in this though? Because I feel like a fish out of water when I try to watch, you know, contemporary product, and when it's hard, you know, the arenas are full. And you know business is doing gangbusters. They're on 600 hours a week.
Right.
Am I a dinosaur? Are you a dinosaur?
No, I said, well, it's not as popular it's not near as popular as it was. Okay?
At its peak back then.
Right. But it's just the fans have and wrestlers have grown up watching different things. I'm 47 years old. How old are you?
I'm 42.
42. We, you know, like I said, what we grew up watching. Okay, we grew up watching Hall of Fame performers and great professional wrestlers and great talkers.
Yeah.
You know, the fans these days grew up watching great technical wrestlers, acrobatics. You know, just they grew up watching a different style. So they've never been fans of what we were a fan of. You know, so it's like it's very different. It's hard to sell them on the old school things. Okay, even though, well, let's say wrestling. Let's say that wrestling went backwards. Okay, and that basically they in NXT they didn't get their guys from Ring of Honor or any like Japanese wrestling guys or anything. You know, they got guys that, you know, all we watched was old Mid-South wrestling tapes, old Georgia Championship wrestling tapes, and educated them on that, and brought these guys in and watched how they wrestle compared to these guys. I profess that those guys would probably be a lot better because if you just learn how to like I tell the young guys all the time, when nobody on the show can like throw good punches and good kicks like they used to back in the day, if you can do it, the fans will get behind you because you look like you're fighting out there more, you know? So, but you can't like the fans these days, you know, the internet fans and everything, they'll just look like, oh, those guys never did nothing in there. You know, like perfect example, like Seth Rollins the other day talks about, you know, wrestlers today are more athletic, more high risk, you know, stuff like basically saying, you know, wrestlers back then didn't do much, but the stuff we did looked good. You know?
I'll probably agree, and you probably would too, that they take more risks today, and that they are maybe more athletic, but it is a battle of good and evil. Is anybody hated today?
No.
I mean,
we always had that,
hated.
You watch the show and like, where's the heat? You know, what did the guy do to make
well,
the
it's
fans
spectacle.
hate it?
It's a pop of, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. It's
Right.
not a pop of, I can't believe he did that to
Right.
him. You know, with the Lou Albano. Fans today would turn off Lou Albano, wouldn't they?
Maybe, you know, like fans today wouldn't they would think the honky tonk man was you know couldn't work. You know,
Exactly.
so am I right? You know,
They should air next Raw, just to fuck with people. They should air 3 hours of Mad Dog Vachon, Lou Albano, Blackjack Mulligan, and just see what happens with the ratings. You've been part of creative teams, committees. How do you think they fare versus having just one chief of all the Indians? And I'm not allowed to say that anymore. I'm a chief of the Indians, but you know what I'm talking about.
I don't know, bro, because like that's such a subjective. Like the way the question is asked these days, you know, well, what's better, a committee or a one-man team? Well, if the one guy has a bunch of good ideas and can write a good show, it's like that would work. But if the one guy, you know, like we had like a five-man team, you know, and we through those meetings, you know, we came up with a lot of stuff. You know, you can have people can shit all over the angles. You know, you can say like, oh, that was a terrible angle, but at least it was a story. You know, we were trying to tell a story. Okay, maybe the story this week wasn't that good. You know, as opposed to, and like, what people don't realize is like when you're the boys and you're not given any interview time, you're not really given a storyline. You're given a match on TV, and because they think your work is good, they're just giving you more time in your match to show your stuff. As one of the boys, you really don't like that. Okay, because like you're thinking, it's like, God, they're just dumping it all in my lap to get over, because like they can't come up with anything for me, you know. So, when guys go out there and like, you know, have these long matches, and like, you know, like I said, you grew up in a different time, bro. When a guy beats a guy in 17 minutes in a long match, it's like, you know, there's still a percentage of fans out there that watch the show and like think it's rough. I was like, why did it take that guy 17 minutes to beat that guy? You know, like I go, the guy the other week beat that guy in 4 minutes.
So
you know,
more TV time is not necessarily better.
No, not when all you're doing is wrestling. You know, like I'm saying, like long televised wrestling matches. People don't realize, you know, the people that like wrestling and like the artistic aspect of it, and they know it's a work, and they're watching how the guys, you know, script the spots and everything and all that. They may like it. But the casual fans, you know, they're just in like, let's get this match over with. You know, I want to see the next match. You know.
But the newsletters are going to give that match.
Yeah, they give
4 stars.
4 stars. You know, and that's
that, right?
and that's kind of like what a lot of the boys would rather have, 4 stars. You know, then some of the, and a lot of, bro, you can tell a lot of these guys they can't cut promos. They would rather build their career on good matches than ever having to say a word. You know, they want to work with the guy that could talk. You know,
Right.
to carry the angle and stuff, everything. You just go out there and wrestle. But like I said, okay. But look at the model of wrestling today. Look at how, you know, the lack of success it has compared to back then. So my answer ultimately to the question you probably asked 5 minutes ago was 80% charisma, talking ability, 20% wrestling.
Are there wrestlers that you work with that never got a chance to work in creative, but you thought just from working with them and giving them ideas, and they maybe came to you with ideas, that they were creative enough to have been on a booking committee?
Oh, Eddie Guerrero, absolutely, yeah. Plus, he comes from the family wrestling, you know, and you could just tell he got it, you know, because he was a master of all styles, you know, and knew he knew how to interject a comedy spot in there and do, you know, just like he just got it, and like he would come to you with ideas for angles and matches, and just, you could, you know, you would soundboard off him because you knew what he was talking about. Not really a lot of the other. The Cat was really good about that because
Ernest?
because he was funny. I mean, I basically had gone to Terry Taylor at one point and said, because Cat in the back would be just running his mouth all day. You know, I could whoop anybody's ass and stuff. Just half joking, half real. So I go, Terry, just give the guy a mic on TV. Like, I just gotta just let him in. And finally they did it. You know, somebody call my mom.
Right.
You know, he was a guy that could come up with some good, funny lines, funny angles to do and stuff and everything and all that. He was very creative. Booker T was very creative with stuff like that. You know, so you know, just the guys that you see eventually got it. You know, like progressed and, you know, became Hall of Fame, you know, quality guys. Those were the guys that
could have done.
Yeah,
the creative aspect.
absolutely.
All right, when you were a fan and you were watching as a kid, when did you know that that someone was pulling the strings and what you were watching wasn't all that one would think it is or should be led to, and that there were people making decisions and it was theater?
I don't, until I started, I think a couple years, like when I was probably ninth grade, eighth, ninth grade, you know. I was just watching as a fan, and then, you know, then as you get older, you get into high school, you're watching, like, you know, trying to think for the, you get in the Booker mind.
Right.
You know, like think about the angles and stuff. I had friends that watch the show. You know, what do you think's going to happen next week?
Right.
You know, what do you think? Oh, well, here's what I would do. You know, so like you know, when you had other people to soundboard creative thinking off of, you know, other people to talk like what angle, how would you do this angle, you know?
Right.
So I'd say probably like 8th, 9th grade.
What are some, do you remember a big angle or storyline that really had you hooked in your youth? Other than the Chief J dancing in the parking lot.
Oh God, there were so many of them.
The Paul Vachon wedding was another favorite.
Just because I watched so much wrestling that the Dusty Rhodes, when he got turned on by Ole and all them in the cage in Atlanta.
Right.
The old Tommy Rich, Buzz Sawyer angle brawls back then, because it was just bloodbaths. I remember every time, like, you know, I knew wrestling was a work, but I was always scared of that Bill the Butcher. Like, I was like, God, this guy, I
you didn't even know about the hepatitis.
I didn't even know about that, but like, I just kind of always got the feeling that, like, when he would, like, come out and go and plow through the chairs and stuff and everything and all that he was like, I was like, God, he probably shouldn't be doing that, but I go, I don't think there's anybody backstage that could tell him, don't do that. You know, like, you know, you might stab him or something. You know, even when I was up at, like, 18 years old, I was thinking that way. You know, he always scared me. You know.
You watch Northeast stuff too in Atlanta? Did you?
Yeah. Like
Piper and the Coconut.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You know what? Let me tell you something. The week before the Piper and the Coconut, there was, and this is more entertaining than that one, is Piper had Snuka on first in the Piper's Pit. I don't know if did you ever see that one? The first one where he was on.
We didn't let him talk. That was the whole thing.
Well, he's just kind of making fun of him. It's like, you know, he's like making fun of his jewelry. He goes, you get your jewelry, yo. He's like, he's like, you know. Piper's just being a dick,
right?
You know, and like, but he's just like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm just messing with you, you know. So like, he's talking about like Jimmy Snuka had all the things on, like the
beads,
coral,
the
beads. He goes, what is this? He goes, I see. He goes, Piper's like me. I got a $10,000 watch in here. You get this cheap jewelry. He goes, what? Maybe you didn't save your money, stuff. You know, just like the little sly things. You know, that stuff I remember. Like Piper. You know, Piper's Pit was a 2-minute segment each week.
I know.
You know, he would get so much in 2 segments just to like get that character over this, you know. But definitely Piper and the Coconut. The Magnificent Morocco was Snuka. Was an angle I remember.
That led up
vividly.
to the cage.
Absolutely.
When
Snuka finally hit the splash.
Right.
You know, he missed it the first time on Bob Backlund. So then he hit it on Morocco. You know, so
which was actually after the match. A lot of people forget about that. Morocco had already won.
Right. Yes.
He was knocked out of the cage.
Yep.
Snuka grabbed him back, and so he could do.
Yes,
the
absolutely.
Splash. A little bit of history for everybody. Is there anyone's booking or writing that you came to appreciate once you got in the business that maybe you hadn't paid attention to or hadn't known that this particular territory or where somebody worked was particularly influential, but then when you worked with them or heard them, you're like, wow, this guy's great.
That I actually
once you started working, that you got an appreciation for.
That I ended up working with.
Yeah. Or for.
Not really. I mean, it's kind of weird because I'll tell you whose work I was a fan of was like the booking style. Like my favorite show when I was growing up, of all the hours of TV I got to watch, my favorite show was Mid-South.
Right.
Just been, and to this day, I still like what they do because, you know, you would have segments where you would, you tell the story to the fans. You know, you would do like when Miss Wrestling #2 turned on Magnum TA. Mm-hmm. You know, Bill Watts brings them out to ringside, and he's going to interview the both of them. You know, and he would show the clips of the things that had happened, like the 3 to 4 weeks of TV, and they would show it. They would. And Watts is such a great storyteller, just narrating this story. You know, he would ask Tua a question, but you know, that's a style that I believe is really lost today, where where you have the performers in the ring, you know, you're explaining this, you know, you're putting on the big screen, showing what happened, letting them explain, you know, why did you do this? You know, like the way that you would, there's not that thing anymore. They don't interview guys after the matches anymore, you know, and that's something that's been lost. Because, you know, in pro sports, what do you usually do when the fight's over?
Right.
You know,
UFC or boxing,
these days they don't talk to anybody when the fights are over. You know, so they give them a shot to, and that's another thing too, that shows how the lack of confidence they have in these guys to like perform like a non-scripted promo. That they think like maybe like, wow, what if he blows up out there and he forgets his line? You know, they don't even trust him.
That's probably part of it, why they can't do it.
But you have like guys like, you know, DiBiase, Duggan, you know, Junkyard Dog, Miss President, all these guys back in Mid-South that could do that, you know? And I was always a fan of that style of storytelling, where, you know, get the guys out there, show the angle, what happened, you know, well, why did you do that? And he responds, well, then this happened the week after, you know, explain, you know, I like that.
The progression.
And it's for 8 minutes they're out there and the fan knows the story very clearly now, you know? So it's like in a 3-hour wrestling show these days, it's like you got to watch the whole show to get all the stories, and there's really not that many stories. And if you turn the channel, you know, you're missing one of the stories, you know, so.
What was your first job in a creative capacity in wrestling?
The WCW was.
Who comes to you?
God, you know what? Let me tell you, this is weird. People have been discussing me as for creative. Okay, before Russo and them came in and stuff and all that. Paige was pitching me to Eric because I was a good idea guy. He said, and Eric came up and asked me. He said, "What would you rather do? Would you rather wrestle or would you rather book?" And I think I told him I said in time I would rather book. And nothing came of it, right? Let's fast forward when Russo and them came in, and one day Vince had been there maybe 3-4 weeks. I'm not too long. He's kind of just started, but we got on the plane. I'm sitting next to him, and it's like a 2-hour flight, and I picked his brain for 2 hours, and we ended up picking each other's brain for 2 hours, and. The next thing I know, like a couple weeks later, he asked, "Hey, why don't you come sit in on the meetings?" And so then the next thing you know, I go in and I'm going to the creative meetings on Wednesday when we get home from TV.
Who's in there with you at that time?
It's myself, Vince and Ed, Terry Taylor, Jerry Borash was in there, and Bill Banks, another production assistant. And Borash was like the go-to guy. Bill Banks was like the production system. He's kind of like our gauge to soundboard stuff off him because he was always miserable, never in a good mood, nothing. Never. I was like, "Oh, well, what'd you think of that, Bill?" "It's all right. Yeah, it's okay." So it's like, "You got anything? What would you do here?" "Oh no, I don't." So, but if you ever
So why'd you put him in?
Just made fun of him. It's like you got to understand. Like our booking meetings was a comedy session. I'm a funny guy. Terry Taylor's a funny guy. Jerry Borash is a comedian. Ed Ferrara used to write comedy. Something. So we entertained each other in there. So it was an entertaining room.
Right. So what would each person's function be? You've got, you said Jeremy Borash was kind of like taking notes and booking assistant type.
He'd have the laptop in front of him. So if we had any type of production idea, or so, can we do this, or we have if there's a question nobody knows of, hey, Google, Jeremy would have it.
Okay.
This is back before everybody had laptops and stuff and things. So but Vince would usually stand up in the room. And he would come in and he would pretty much have he would have stories, okay, and he would lay out stories, and we'd be like that's good, or and him and Ed had put pencil to paper and written shows. I never wrote a show, I never put pencil to paper or anything. I was like a think tank guy. I was like I said, I was like a creative thinker.
So you come up with an idea,
yeah,
propose it, and now is it Vince who kind of says, yeah, we could go with that, or
we'd all just start discussing and arguing.
Okay.
Everybody putting their 2 cents in. Terry was Terry would get hot at me because he would think I would waste time sometimes, because I would if I thought something sucked, I would not I would fight tooth and nail to try to not make sure that did not get on TV. And Terry would be, I think Terry was more old school, and I think he more kind of wanted just to get done with the meeting every day, as opposed to, these meetings take like 7, 8, 9 hours. They're rough sometimes because you get writer's block. It's just you got nothing. It's like nobody has anything, and But I was always a guy in there that I probably had more ideas than anybody. I'd be like, well, what about this?
Right.
And it gets shot down immediately. All right, okay. All right, what about this? And then they'd pop, or whatever it was, and then they'd pop and yeah, but then it gets shut down. What about this? And then Vince would be like, what if we do this? And then you get this
build on it.
You get the build, yeah. But I would say, that I probably had more ideas than anybody. Terry kind of thought that maybe I had too many that wasted time, but I was like, my mind's going in there. I'm just throwing things out. It's like like I said, we had a lot of TV to fill here. So.
You remember the first idea you pitched?
I don't remember the first idea I pitched, but I will tell you this: the very first week that I was working in creative, is I went to the production meeting. Okay, it was the very first time I was ever in a production meeting, and I just remember it's like, you know, they're going through the meeting, it's like, you know, I had like five questions, like, why are we doing this here? You know, so like there was like a lot of errors in the show, the format of the show, that I would be like, you know, okay, this is like Booker T's third music and entrance on the show. That kind of seems like really repetitive. Maybe he should come out during the commercial so we don't have to, like, you know.
Were they taken aback by that?
Absolutely not, because each time I had an idea, it was the correct one.
Okay.
You know, and I remember Eric saying, "Oh, he's good, Disco, thanks." You know, like Eric was putting me over, like that first production meeting, because I pointed out like a lot of things that were wrong with the show.
The Disco Duck was over more than half the roster. More over than half the roster.
Yes.
Was it your idea?
Let me tell you what it was. Me and Conan, Ray, and Kidman, there was like a little clique. Hoovy be with us too sometimes. We're in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we are it's, you know, maybe the day before the show or day of the show that we didn't have to, maybe TV, but like we got up early in the mornings. We don't have to be at TV till 2 o'clock. It's yeah, that's what it was, because on the West Coast, it was like for a Thunder, so we're not shooting until 8 o'clock that night. And I remember, like, when you do a West Coast show, it ends early the day before because it's live, so you end at like 8 o'clock. So you got a lot of time in between the next show, as usual from a Monday and Tuesday, where it's just next town, wake up, you know. So we went to the downtown, and there was an Urban Outfitters, and there was a plastic, this big plastic goose. So the thing was a goose. It wasn't a duck. So I said, hey, I should have this. This is back when we do the Filthy Animals. I go, I should bring this on the show and let this be the Disco Duck. And like if Conan popped, you go, oh, that'd be tremendous. You know, bro, this is like the dying days of WCW. We're booking ourselves. Like if we had an idea, we would just kind of do it. Like if we had a promo, I show up with the duck, and it was a backstage promo, and I just started bringing it out on TV, because like nobody really cared back then, because we were getting killed in the ratings, and just, you know, we're like doing 2.5s and they're doing 6.0s, and you know, but we were having fun. We were never going to let the fact that WCW was falling apart prevent us from having fun.
Right.
And that's, you know, and that's one thing that people have always said, like, I get a lot of heat over, is the fact that, like, I didn't revel in other people's misery. You know, people walk around and be miserable. I'd be joking around all the time, because I'm not going to, I'm coming to work. What am I going to have, like, a bad day at work? I'm still wrestling, I'm you know, still joking around.
Vince Russo on this very show said, in reference to you, because we brought up some of the Glenn Gilberti ideas, which we'll talk about later, and he laughed. He goes, that's tremendous. He goes, why, when a guy comes along, meaning you, who is not so uptight like everybody else in the business and doesn't, I believe the quote was, have a cork up their ass, why people give him such a hard time? Were you given a hard time for always being so?
No, well, people think I was a goof.
Right.
Or I'm like, okay, you go be miserable. I'll be a goof and have fun and laugh all day. You know, so you go, like, I mean, you go sit there and worry that, you know, your character's not, you know, I mean, too many guys are marks for themselves, bro. That's, I mean, it's that simple. I mean, too many guys are, if their character's getting beat on TV that night, they're having a terrible day. You know, it's like they can't think that they're showing up as their, you know, as Glenn Gilberti, and then they're not the Disco Inferno until they put their stuff on and walk out there. Right. But when they come back through the curtain, they take it off. You're back to being Glenn Gilberti. Right. Just too many guys couldn't comprehend that.
You were beat by a video game character tonight, and you were fine with it.
Yes, you know why I tell people? They go when they ask you, it's like, hey, do you mind putting this guy over? I go, well, is the pay different? Right. If there's I used to tell promoters sometimes. Some think I'm done, like, shooting with them. I go, is there a winner's share of the purse? I go, if there's a winner's share of the purse, I have an issue with put this guy over. You know, so like, bro, it's like, I don't care. It's like, you know, it's a wrestling match. It's like, you know, it's.
You worked in TNA also in creative. Could you compare and contrast the two environments?
Oh boy, that's night and day, night and day. This is going to take some time to discuss. All right. You got to understand that that Jeff Jarrett is probably one of the brighter guys I've ever met in professional wrestling. Okay, second generation promoter. Bro, Jeff knows so much about the business. All right, to the point that like a guy like Scott Steiner would always go to Jeff and like run his match, whoever he was wrestling, by Jeff. And Jeff would because Jeff, like, when was the last time Jeff Jarrett ever had a bad match? And like, it's like never, he always had, never had like any super unbelievable 5-star, epic classics, but like he always had a good match every single night without fail, So it was me, Vince, Jeremy Borash back in there. He's like the recurring guy in the room, something, and Dutch and Jeff. All right. So the problem with that is that Jeff was in charge, okay, and Vince was the writer, but Jeff had to rubber stamp everything, okay. So and just Jeff, what's the word I want to use here? There's some very fundamental philosophical differences between Vince and me and Jeff, and even Dutch. Dutch was kind of like Jeff's guy too, but even Dutch disagreed with the main problem Jeff has with writing TV is that Jeff wanted to always explain why the camera is in the shot. So like you couldn't have a vignette with just two guys talking to each other.
Because he'd say, well, why don't they notice the camera's right there? I understand.
And we'd be like, bro, it's because the fans don't, just, well, what's your opinion on that?
My personal opinion?
Yes.
I didn't notice a big difference until in TNA. Mm-hmm. I think it was Russo, he told me it was him, started doing a thing where they would peek around the corner or through the door. And I said, it's so much more real right now because the camera's not in the room.
Right.
So I came to appreciate the camera not not supposed to be there.
But the thing is, before that, you never noticed it.
I guess I didn't.
Right, yeah, so that's what it's like, guys, nobody notices this. It's like, we can't start bringing this up because we're going to lose so much things we want to do and angles we want to shoot and stuff. And then Dutch thought the same way, and Dutch even would say, I'll get him to change, because Dutch was a very, Dutch booked Puerto Rico. That's one guy I actually learned to appreciate his booking style is Dutch, because he was he was old school, but very, very creative. He'd come up with it was funny because he told me one time, he told me wrestling's plagiarism. Everything's been done a million times. It's just but I'm like, nah, I go, not if you're creative. But he was creative though, even though that's what he would say, because he came up with some really cool, just ideas. Dutch had tons of great ideas.
He was on this very show.
But we were all me, Dutch, and Jeff me, Dutch, and Vince were just always hamstrung by Jeff has to he has to have a guy doing the interview, or it can't be a private scene, or it can't be like a vignette somewhere where two guys. I don't know. Just like I said, it's completely different than the style of TV he'd been writing for the past 6, 7, however long it's been since he started booking WWE. Okay, and Jeff, when it first started, Jeff liked to book backwards. From he wanted Sean Oliver versus Disco Inferno. All right, let's
in the pay-per-view 6 months from now.
No, on TV on Wednesday night.
Okay.
Get there. Okay, as opposed to Vince would have stories. If the story culminated in a match,
Jeff finds the match first.
Finds the match.
Vince found the story first.
When Vince tell the story to get the match. Here's the match. Here's our match. Jeff would have the matches all set. We'd be like, all right, which is kind of if you think about it, okay, maybe it's not the best way, but it is a way you could do it if you have enough guys in the room to basically, which is what we did. That's how we booked that show for a long time. We would get to the match. you know, and then Vince would write, you know, it's a little more different. Actually, it was a little bit easier for Vince to write the show because he already knew all the matches. And the way you write, you know, with your outline, just connect things here, you know, you have a couple interviews. So let's take this match and put it the fourth segment. We have an interview at the end of one, interview at the end of two, then later, you know, we have the match and stuff. But
is there animosity when all this differences of opinion?
oh yeah, there was a lot of it. We were entertained because you got to understand, Jeff was still the same. I was still the same guy. I would throw ideas out there, just that, you know, and Jeff liked almost had me in there because he would pop, because even like he was old school. He still like, you know, he'd pop on like a lot of my ideas because they're out there, and like he'd be like shaking his head like my ideas sometimes are those ideas you go like I hit you with, you're like, oh, get it, we can't do that, you know, and then you think like, you know, then 5 minutes later, he's like, you know what? Because like you're thinking about it, you know what I threw at you, and like it comes back around, and you're like, you know what? We could probably like, and then it's just because like I hit you with stuff that creates, you know, the thought process. So that always entertained Jeff. But yeah, that was like I said, fundamentally in TNA was just a very difficult thing because we just could not get the camera out of the room, and we just couldn't write vignettes like you know, you couldn't write a vignette. You know what I mean?
Where did you guys meet in TNA?
At the office in Nashville. That was a legit office complex. So.
Dixie Carter's is kind of one of those lightning rod personalities, and we had her on a show of ours called You Shoot, and it was very brave of her. It was, you know, she faced her public, and it was live, and took all the criticism. We didn't edit any of the questions out. However, one question I didn't allow in about grooming habits that she might have had. I thought that she didn't have to discuss that on our show, but everything else she fielded. But what was her involvement in what you guys wanted to do creatively? Would she take sides? Did she play favorites? What was it like having her as a boss, as a member of creative?
She leaned on Vince's decisions, okay? Because, I mean, just Jeff would just, like, couldn't accept, you know, like that a woman is like, you know, that doesn't really know much about wrestling, that her idea would be the right one. You
there were
know
a lot of people in wrestling that felt that way.
So, you know, but like I said, it's like, you know, we're in there trying to like, everything's working angles, you know. Let's, you know, me and Vince were like, let's make the boss happy, you know. So you do like, you know, and Vince, and you know, a lot of times Jeff would be just like, you know, he'd fight battles he shouldn't really, you know, like smaller things, like why don't we just do this, you know, and stuff and everything, and he wouldn't relent, you know.
Because it was her.
Yeah, and he didn't think it was a good idea. Maybe even we didn't think it was that good of an idea, but it's like, it's a good enough idea to make the boss happy. So just, you know, even though, you know what I'm saying? It's like, just do it, you know?
Vince was unhappy with a lot of what Dixie was doing at the time. What is something that Dixie would want done that you guys knew wasn't a good idea, but you do it? Is it something like somebody getting a push? Or is it a specific angle? Or is it using somebody you didn't want to use?
It was always kind of like she was like a fan of maybe like a celebrity we wanted to use or something that we would like just like what, you know, or like a or like another like a talent that she was really high on. The everybody in the room was like, you know, there's no way, you know. So but
she wouldn't trust a wrestler's opinion of another wrestler.
She liked what she liked. You know, you can understand like let's look at the psychology here, okay, of a woman in charge of a bunch of men, okay, in a business where she's not really you know, shares the same knowledge. I mean, if you want to talk, you know, really put it into perspective, you know, she's the general manager of the New England Patriots. Right. Okay, she'll trust everybody. You know, Bill Belichick and crew will get the job done fine, but you know, the GM is just completely, you know, unattached to like everything that they're doing. But she may be like, you know, hey, you know, I like that Jimmy Garofalo kid. Like, let's get him in for a few plays. You know, it's like, you know, what do you want to bench Tom Brady for? Like, you know, and then, you know, I'd be like, well, if she just wants him in for a few plays, why can't we put him in for a few plays? You know,
Right.
it's like, it's like, you just don't, because Tom will be pissed. You know, it's like, you know, so that's the psychology of what she was dealing with. Then also throw in the psychology of a woman. And this is most women you know. She was a college girl, sorority sister, you know, stuff and everything. Bro, just from going to college, and like, did you go to college?
Yes.
Okay, so what is the worst thing you can do about a sorority sister? The sorority sisters don't ever want anybody to know anything bad about them. They don't want to face any criticism. They don't want any, you know, like, if somebody thinks they're not attractive or something, that's, you know, they react like a woman would react. You know what I'm saying? So take that psychology of, you know, like a woman, that women don't like to be criticized, you know, especially when they're in charge, and just mix all that in there into that melting pot, and that's what you had.
Was she temperamental? Is that what I'm hearing? Is that the undertone of what I'm hearing?
Not so much, but you could. Here's a perfect thing. She could not stand when the stuff Keller or Meltzer writes something critical.
Oh, so she was on the internet a lot.
So to the point, like, she would just really make her upset, and I'd be like, Dixie, well, why don't you talk to them then? I go, you're an intelligent, well-spoken woman. I go, give them your side of the story. I go, you said that you're worried about what they're saying. Call them and give them your side of the story. Talk to them. Because she was like, you know, she like had heard like you're not supposed to talk to the sheets, you know, because she wanted to arrest them. I'm like, you know, if you're worried about what they're saying about you and it's affecting you this much, you probably get a good release out of telling your side of the story to them.
Would she want angles changed or dropped because of things that were being written on the internet?
You know what? It happens so often that I can't remember if it was.
This is horrifying.
I can't remember if it was specific angles or I think it was internal things that were being written about the company. It was what got her the most. Not the, you know, or like something like so and so. Or like an angle would happen on TV, and they'd say, and this be because Dixie wanted this to happen, like an angle be dumped.
And was it true?
No, usually not. Usually not. So, you know, but somebody was, whoever the Stooges were talking to them was telling them that. You know, so she was like getting mad at like the you know, like some of the stuff that was going on, and so it would really bother her, and I'd be like, you know, you know, I spoke to you earlier today about my history with the sheets, but they've never affected me at all. I mean, to me, it's just wrestling news, which is on the level of the National Enquirer type bags, you know, stuff. So I've never really, like, you know, it's never bothered me. But like a lot of people in this business, you know, especially Dixie, but it bothered her a lot. And I was like, yeah, just talk to them then, you know.
Yeah. Were you ever contacted by WWE to work in a creative capacity over there?
No, never in a creative capacity.
Okay.
My whole thing with WWE was when I got fired from WCW, is I had the no compete clause for 6 months, and during that time we had maintained contact. I just, you know, they never said they couldn't offer me anything because there was a no compete,
right.
six month no compete. They could just call me and ask my status was.
Right. So who was in charge over there of
Cornette.
Okay.
He had called me like 2 or 3 times, and then I finally had a conversation with Bruce Pritchard, and nothing came of it. And then just at this time, I saw Sting at the gym, and he was like, "Well, you know, what happened to you?" And I'm like, and I told him the story. Then he went to Eric and got me my job back at WCW. So, and then I heard later on that my conversation with Bruce Pritchard didn't go very well, and I was like,
How did it? I mean, you had it. Did it go well?
I just told him that I repeated ad nauseum exactly everything I've been telling Cornette. Like, so I go, well, you know the story. He goes, and like he'd say, well, repeat it because he goes, I'd rather, like, I remember Bruce Pritchard told me, I'd rather hear it from the horse's mouth, You know, then the horse. It was funny he was saying that because I'd been talking to Cornette. So it's like I'd rather hear from the horse's mouth than the horse's ass. I'm like, I popped internally on that because I was thinking, wow, these guys must not get along with each other, right? So, and later on down the road, I found out that Cornette and Pritchard had an incredibly fantastic, entertaining relationship, you know, with each other. So, but it just didn't go well. I just told him why I mean, according to him, I just told him why I didn't do the job to Jackie, which is because everybody had told me don't do it. They told me I was going to be disappearing for 6 months, and my contract was coming up in 4. And members of the creative team and you know my friends and everything said told me they were probably going to fire me and that I shouldn't do it.
What's your greatest creative contribution during your time?
I think the booking of Lance Storm. The booking, I was the point man basically on Lance. I was like, because here's what I used to say. We had a new guy, all right? I think this is right when I started booking. He'd shown up on TV. He was a baby face. He maybe won a match or 2. He'd been on for 2 weeks. And he did a promo. And like I said, I was telling the guys, bro, this guy's a boring Canadian guy. I go, this is a good gimmick. You know what I'm saying? I go, let's so what we do with Lance Storm is it's something that really just isn't done anymore. We just kept pushing him more and more and more every single week. We never took a step back. We gave him he won the maybe he won the TV title, won the U.S. title first.
Yes.
Okay. Then he won the TV title. He had 2 belts, and they were thinking I remember the first thing he says bro, let's give him the hardcore belt. I go, let's give this guy all the belts. I go, let's push this guy. You know, let's see how far he can go. And he was succeeding every single week because he was cutting promos and he was getting over. And I was like, I would say that the booking Lance Storm was entertaining. It was entertaining because it was funny because I remember Eric thought he would be a big baby face. And I was like, oh God, this guy's not. It's nobody's gonna cheer for this guy. He's just very, you know. The funny thing about Lance Storm too is he's really OCD, to where if you're driving in the friends have driven with him. If you're driving in the car with him, all of the dials have to be pointed at 90-degree angles. He's like that. So he's a peculiar cat, but yeah, that was fun, really, booking him in WCW.
I remember he was critical, I guess, of Russo at some point. And
yeah, which I thought was...
Vince on our show was like, this guy, would you have put any more belts on this guy?
I couldn't believe, when he became one of those, him and Corny are really good friends. So if you're in the Cornette camp, I don't think you can ever...
be in the...
Well, I think you just have to hate Vince. You know, it's that's part of part of the thing. But yeah, I was just surprised that he was so anti-Russo and I'm thinking boy, that's the last guy, you know, especially since what Vince did for his career, the biggest push the guy ever had, you know?
Glenn, I know you've been probably credited with some of these ideas that never came to light, but were brought up in a WCW booking meeting. Maybe they were yours, maybe they weren't, but they all get attributed to you.
I know.
So let's go through them and see how much you were responsible for, what the original idea was. And then, damn it, if we had to book it, let's go to the board and we'll see what we could have done with it. Building the evil architect.
All right. What do you call what's the term? A wives' tale or something like that?
Wives' tale.
Something's attributed to. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Building the evil architect has and always will be Terry Taylor's brainchild.
Okay.
Okay.
Was it?
That 100%. And he would probably be mad if he thought that I was taking credit for it, okay? Because
he's very proud of it.
You get understand because Terry had that funny play with words type, you know, because he was when he was the Red Rooster, you know, he had it's going to be excellent, you know. It's okay. So he had that thing going on. So he liked building the evil architect. And like he would tell us, you know, he had the taglines, you know, I've got the foundation for success. You know, I have the plans to succeed.
Was the wall in there at that time? Who was the wall?
The wall
was
no.
there.
Yeah, but you got to understand.
That could have been a feud like you've never seen.
Yes, but also you got to understand, humorous was also Hugh Morris was also Terry Taylor's. That was his idea. Any type of character that had a play on words like that. But it was funny because like what it would do is you know, like bro, you're sitting in these meetings for 6, 7, 8 hours, you know, and you're coming up, like we were always trying to come up with that character that is just so ridiculous, but not ridiculous enough to put on TV. Okay, you know, we'd always be like out there, you know, like Terry would have Bill Ding, the evil architect, and I said, why don't we have, you know, the evil archaeologists, Doug Hole and Artie Fact, you know? So we were like, okay, but you gotta understand. So to get these things on TV, all right, we'd always try to think about like God, we need to come up with a storyline where there is the confused promoter. Like the promoter that's like, just like a crazy mad scientist guy that like, you know, because like when Vince first came into WCW and he was doing the angle where he was the hand and stuff, like open up the curtain gimmick, where there was like actually kind of like a writer behind the scenes and stuff and all that, you know, that it had been done, everybody, all the talent kind of shit on it, you know, the internet people shit on, you know, so it's just, it was too hot topic to like, you know, we don't want to open the doors, right? But if that character was, you know, we could reinvent that character, then we could get building, you know, he would take like a character.
It was the product of an out of control writer.
Absolutely, which is what we were really saying. We're a bunch of out of control writers coming with these crazy ideas, but like, what if that was an angle to produce these things on the show? You know, right. but it's just too inside. You can't like present the show as like it's being written. You know, here was the only problem is this. It would just really confuse the you know, what would the suspension of disbelief be? You know what I'm saying? Like where would you be at? You know, how many traditional wrestling fans would just not watch anymore? How many new fans of intelligent TV might start watching it? You know, but it was just it never got any. We were kind of almost going home in the room for that type of like writing. You know, like we wanted to change stuff. We're getting killed in the ratings. Yeah. You know. It's like 6.0 to 3.2.5 or 2.7, whatever it was, but yeah, it just never made the light of day because there's just too much. Yeah.
What did you think of Terry as a booker, as a creative person?
Terry loved anything that involved tits and ass. He was just all over, just kind of like, you know, just like he liked the angles with the girls. You know, he was old school, okay, but he was new school in that, you know, he knew that there needed to be a sex appeal to the show. You know, like this show's for 18 to 34-year-old males. We need hot chicks on the show, and if you know, we need kind of like, it wouldn't hurt to put a lot of them on there. You know what I'm saying, in some capacity. My personally, I'm a male chauvinist pig. I do not like women's wrestling. Okay, and there is a handful of girls that are really good at it. There also are a handful of very super hot, attractive girls. And like the one thing I don't like is I don't like when you take a super hot, attractive girl.
Try to make her a wrestler.
And she loses her sex appeal, okay? You know, let the girls that are good enough to wrestle and make it look like they're not like, you know what I'm saying? Like when a lot of girls wrestle, they just look like they're just like women's basketball. Just doesn't look as good as yes, it's not the same product. You know what I mean?
Now, but did Terry share that opinion too, or Terry wanted them to wrestle?
Terry, I don't think Terry cared. Yeah, we didn't really. I don't.
But Terry just like them out there.
No. Yeah, it's out there because we didn't have. Remember, WCW, we didn't have a lot of wrestlers.
Yeah,
no. We had a lot of girls.
Yeah.
Didn't have a lot of wrestlers. You know, we had Miss Hancock. We had Miss. You know, there were prominent characters on the show, but they weren't. We didn't have a lot of wrestlers because like that was me. I'm like, I don't want, you know. It's like we got enough guys here that need TV time to wrestle. Like, why are we putting the girls out there?
Were there people proposing it that you were shooting it down?
I can't really recall. I remember the one thing I was saying is I think they may at some point they wanted to bring some girls in, and I said, well, if they're going to train them, I go just teach. I go what I would pop for. I go if we could find a hot Asian or tall blonde character that knows martial arts, she could possibly compete in action against the guys. Because you watch movies, and there's that hot Asian, martial artist chick. She's fighting James Bond.
Yeah, Kill Bill.
I'm saying, James Bond fights, but you have to find a girl that's really good at it. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, as a matter of fact, I think during that time I was saying, well, we should go look for some like hot martial arts girls, see if they want to wrestle. Train them to wrestle and stuff. So
Didn't.
No, this is back when they were cutting money. They weren't spending money.
So, since this is a guest booker where we go back and we rebook things that were never booked, let's take on building. First, would you tweak the character from what Terry originally proposed, or?
Like I've thought about building. Like when we discussed that we were going to discuss building. Okay, I just was kind of blank. Okay, but one thing that does get my juices flowing is the vignettes.
Yes.
To bring building in. Okay, so who is building?
First, who gets the job? You want to see the roster? I have the roster.
You have the roster?
Yeah. Who could have done it?
Okay.
There's 2 pages of it. A lot of people on the payroll back then. You might remember that.
I'll just run it right off the bat because I'm just going to use this one guy. Okay. Just because he fits like a lot of the characters that me and Vince had come up with, and so there's other characters that we'll discuss some of the other characters we came up with, but let's say Pat Kenny, Simon Diamond.
Okay.
Clean cut looking guy, looks like a college right out of the frat boy, good looking guy and everything. So what is building, what's the vignettes here?
Yeah. Okay. Good. Let's start there.
All right. So here's what he's wearing. All right. In the vignettes, he's just a guy. He's got glasses.
Okay.
Shirt and tie. He looks like a college professor. Okay. And he's an architect. All right. So you show this guy, right? He's in the ring. He's got like a tape measure. He's measuring like the ring, like he's doing like
the physical ring.
He's
the
doing
turnbuckles, the ropes.
You're showing quick edits.
He's got a T-square.
He's got T-squared. Yes, he's analyzing the ring. Okay, and all that, and then you show him the final thing on the he gets on the top rope and he does a flip and he lands on his feet in the middle of the ring. Coming soon. Building the evil architect. Okay, so that's just like that. That's week 1 vignettes.
Okay.
All right. Week 2, similar thing. Show him doing the measurements and everything, and he does some type of other move. Like maybe maybe there's another performer in the ring, and he does a move to the guys. Same type of vignette, but we're showing this guy he's got skill, and now he can actually perform the moves on somebody else.
And these are still just those 15-second.
The 30, yes, quick edits. Okay. Boom. Okay, so week 4 or week 3, so week 2's vignettes. Okay. All right. Week 3. I think we're going to put him out there in a just a 3 to 4 minute match. Okay, he comes to the ring. He still he's got his tools. Maybe he's got a thing like like one of these things like the big like this thing here, but it's got the pad. Like
the chart paper.
The chart paper, where you can flip the pages up and everything. Okay, so he's got it at ringside. He's got the chart paper, and the chart paper is filled with, how when you went to gym class, and it's showing all the weightlifting moves, the maneuvers. It's just got move after move after move after move after move, okay?
Already on the chart.
On the charts, everything, okay? So he's looking before the match, he's flipping through, he's circling, and he goes in the ring. All right?
It's at ringside.
It's at ringside. It's at ringside, okay? And he goes in the ring, he pulls the charts. Maybe the guy gives him a bump. He takes a bump out of the ring. He goes back to the charts, moves. He's got the play. He gets the ring, big spot, and he beats the guy. Okay, so that's 3 weeks now. Okay, building. We'll not even call him he's the architect.
Right.
We won't say the evil architect. That's a cheesy name to give a guy, you know.
Right. That's the cheesy part.
That's the cheesy part, right? Okay. So let's progress him 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay.
He's got same gimmick, more wins. All right. Now we had during this time, okay, we were doing a deal with this is sort of circa WCW. Does we have to have a time period here? Would you guest book like
just when you were working?
When I was working,
yeah.
we had a deal where Fit Finley was going up to people and challenging them. Like, hey, I'm going to take your... He goes, like, he would have a match against a guy that night. And then we were doing the promos where he would walk up to the guy earlier in the show and say, hey, I'm going to come in and take you out there. I'm going to stretch you into 2 pieces of meat. He goes, hey, if you don't show up, I'm going to come to your house. Like, he would go up to the guy. They're already scheduled for a match, you know, and he would tell the guy, look, if you don't show up to the match, I'm going to come to your house. Okay? So during this time, Fit Finley is doing this gimmick, okay? So he does the same thing with he's wrestling building this week.
Right.
Okay? And
He approaches Fit.
Yes, same gimmick. If you don't show, I'm going to come to your house. And so building says, I would like you to come to my house. Okay? So building does not show up for the match. All right? So we show the vignette of Fit Finley going to Building's house. Okay, and like however you do it, I mean, there's like a million things you can do, but Fit Finley goes to his house. Building has dummied a trap in the house to catch Fit Finley. Okay, and he beats up Fit Finley in his house and throws Fit Finley out on his front lawn. And basically, so that's how we built up an angle over 6-7 weeks, everything with building the evil architect. So that's how I mean, that's what I would pitch.
All right, another famous out-of-this-world idea of discos is the Invisible Man. What's the inspiration for this? Tell me about the pitch meeting when this comes up. All
right, when you're in the meetings, writer's block, and I'll never forget this because everybody it literally we'd sit there and just complete silence sometimes. You know, usually when there was more than like 30 seconds of silence. That's a long time in our room, you know. So we were there like it was like 2 minutes, you know. And just I would always be standing up. I couldn't sit still. Everybody else would always be sitting down. Vince would stand up. Terry sat down the whole time. Ed sat down the whole time. Bill and Bill Banks would brood around the room, just so he let stand up. So I just remember it was like just 2 minutes went by. And I'll never forget, I was like, how about this? We show a shot of an empty locker area, and after 30 seconds, coming soon, the Invisible Man. Bro, everybody in the room just popped, just started cracking up and everything. Okay, so they're like cracking up, and you gotta understand that was the gist of it, like that there. Like we weren't gonna book deal, but I would like pop the room with funny stuff like that, you know. So the word got out that like of course wrestlers try to make it sound they would really Disco wants to bring in the Invisible Man,
right? And
actually I think Vince was Troy going around telling people, bro, there's your boy that wants to bring in an Invisible Man. Like Vince is going to tell, and we'd all be cracking up. And I was just thinking, like, look, I'm like, guys, I don't want to bring in, have an invisible man like that. I go, but what if you had a character on the show that was like say, like a guy like Eugene, or at the time we were doing kind of like Norman Smiley was off as rocker because, he was kind of like silly character. What if you had two heel characters, okay, or a heel character that was trying to convince the mentally deficient person that there was an invisible man, okay? And that, and so like how would you do it, As I said, that the first week, coming soon, the Invisible Man, all right? And at the time, the silly character that like I remember when we did the thing, we were showing those Glacier vignettes, like he was coming back again, and Norman Smiley, we did the thing like Glacier like had disappeared, right? So we're like,
with good reason.
So we did the gimmick again. Coming soon, we started rerunning the thing, and everybody's like, so. And when we did those vignettes, like we show the locker room, which would show a shot of guys like show some like Kidman and be like me and Kidman, or so the three guys would be sitting there going like, this is true, this was on the show.
Yeah.
They'd be like, what? They're like, Glacier again? Like, what are they doing? Like, so go, how stupid can they be bringing Glacier back?
What was the tagline?
Blood run cold.
Blood runs cold.
No, blood runs colder. Okay, that's what. We did. Okay, so we twisted it, or like I think it was like blood runs cold again. Okay, all right. So then, like the second week we did it, it's like we showed the Glacier vignette, and then we showed Norman Smiley going like, "Wow, Glacier's coming back. This is great news." So Norman was like the silly guy, the silly character. So we do the empty locker room vignette, and we do the same thing. We pan away, and Norman Smiley's going, "Oh my God, there is an invisible man coming to WCW." And people look at Norman like, "Yeah, right, buddy. Okay, I'm sure there is, right?" So you have Norman Smiley sees the vignette and gets he's worried that there is an invisible man coming, right? So week 2, Norman Smiley is like walking down the hall, or he does an interview, and in the middle of the interview, the door behind him to the locker room, mysterious, like he's in front of the locker room, the door slams shut, okay, and like he's what the, so he looks in the thing and there's nobody in there, and he's like, oh my God, it must be the Invisible Man, okay, right? So week 3, another situation where maybe like a what would you do here? Maybe
you said you were going to maybe put him with someone who...
No. His two guys are they're going to pull the rib on him. So maybe one of the heel characters, okay, is doing the what you call it, the Fight Club gimmick, where he's acting like an invisible man is kicking his ass.
Right.
Okay.
This happened in the ring?
No, this is like back in the hallway. In the hallway.
Who could do that? Who could have fun with that here from your roster? Who would have been good?
Who would it be? Let's see if he was a heel. Conan, Kidman, and who else could do this with him? Like, who's another?
Conan does a gimmick called the Invisible Booker.
Yeah, no, but right.
When you wait at the airport.
It's got to be another smarky character, like a kind of like it could be a little prick. Let's say it's Jindrak, just like two young, punk kids, okay. Like Jindrak and Kidman, okay. No, you know what it is? It's Jindrak and let's do Jindrak and Sean O'Hare because they were like teaming with each other, right? Okay, and Sean O'Hare or Jindrak is acting like he's getting beat up in the hallway. And Norman comes up on the scene. He's like, "Oh my God, Norman, I think I've just been attacked by an invisible man." And it's like, okay, so basically, so week 4, all right. Week 4, we are going to. How would you progress this? Would O'Hare or Jindrak basically maybe have a would they have a match against the Invisible Man now?
Well, I think you've been teasing it in the locker room, so maybe
you
bring it into the ring.
Right. So now and the announcer
does Norman come down to make the save? That would be hilarious.
Norman is okay. Jindrak is going to wrestle the Invisible Man.
Okay.
Okay? And Norman Smiley is going to be a color commentary for this. All right? with Madden and Tanay, whoever it was, Scott Hudson could be a good guy for this too. And, you know, the announcers are just shitting all over this. Okay? That this is, and Jindrak's out there actually like he's wrestling the Invisible Man. And Norman is dead convinced, all right, that this is like you know,
the match.
Look at the Invisible Man. It's like, you know, should.
And they're saying, "Come on, are you kidding
me?"
me?"
Come
So
on,
they-
right. So Norman's just convinced, all right, and basically, God, you couldn't really do a special effect here, but I'm not sure.
Is there ever a promo with the Invisible Man?
With the Invisible Man?
Do we ever hear anything?
I don't. You tell me. Maybe no. We never hear.
Never hear.
It's a rib, so it's like, you know.
Right,
so
right.
How would you pull the rib?
Well, I'm
off?
saying they could have. Maybe someone's hiding behind a locker. I don't know.
Maybe early in the night we did a promo with the, you know,
And it's
like
really
we're
all
Invisible
hair
Man.
behind the locker room.
Yeah, right.
Behind the locker doing
Right.
that.
So then what we could do is week 5 is, I'm not exactly sure what exactly the setting is, but Norman, like, you know, the Invisible Man is here. You know, we've got him surrounded, you know, whatever. And Norman comes into the scene, and basically, let's say it's the Natural Born Thrillers. O'Hara and Jindrak were doing this,
Right.
And the door closes, and the Natural Born Thrillers are all in the room, and they beat Norman up. Okay, because
they
they revealed,
complete
he's come on the
thing.
reveal.
Okay.
There's actually no Invisible Man, and they've gotten heat on poor Norman Smiley. Okay, and that's how you, like, you know, and then we do this too. After we show this, we show like whatever vignettes we were doing, like with the door closing or stuff on that. We're going to show there was, like, say Mike Sanders was filming this with a camera the whole time, showing the rib that they were playing, and like, so we can go back and, like, if you saw the door close, there was the guys were pulling the string and stuff and all that. So they just, like, you know, so the Thrillers all basically just made Norman Smiley look like a schmuck, and they get, you know, and they get heat on Norman Smiley. But this back when Norman's doing the hardcore gimmick.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now Norman, you know, he comes out in battle armor, right? And he gets it. You know, he comes back and, like, you know, starts taking it to the Natural Born Thrillers.
Right.
You know, dressed like an armored
So
superhero.
you've got a legit wrestling angle.
Yep.
Out of this. See, everyone laughed when they heard the Invisible Man.
I've heard it, but, like, you
thought he was going to put a title on a guy that didn't exist.
Right.
But it was just to get a wrestling angle going.
Yes, absolutely.
Like Bill.
And then I'm telling you, here's the thing about that angle right there. Some of the wackiest angles in wrestling have gotten better ratings than you would think they would. You know, when Vince was doing his thing where it would be a
This Is Your Life, I think, was.
well, no, not that, but that was like thing. But like when Vince was doing you know, Vince and Shane versus Shawn Michaels and God, that popped a rating. That was like getting better numbers than, like, you know, like, remember when they did that? So whenever there's stuff that is so, like, different, it grabs eyeballs.
It generates interest.
It just generates it.
So,
It's
yeah.
like, well, what are they doing here? Oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this. You know, stuff like that. But, like, if you do it logically, okay, and spin it like that, I'm telling you, stuff like that gets more people to watch. You know.
What would Wade Keller and Dave Meltzer have said about that?
I'll tell you this. I know Wade. Somebody tweeted this to me the other day. It's like that Wade Keller said he disagrees with almost everything that I have. My take on professional wrestling, he disagrees with practically everything. Okay. And I'm like, all right, you know, that's fine. But I've always felt that my take is that you can basically give your take on professional wrestling, and you can say, like, things that you think are good, shows you put over, wrestlers you think they've done well, and all I say is, okay, let's marry that to the numbers, because the numbers are the only critic, because that's your bottom line. And you can sit there, you know, what you and I write about a subject, about a match, that's me and you's personal opinion. The only facts we have in the argument are the ratings. The ratings, okay? So just if the type of wrestling I like, you know, like back in if you take you know, you can just say it was Crash TV, but if you take the style of the way the wrestling show was written back during the Attitude Era, you know, matches were 3 to 4 minutes long. a lot of other content, vignettes, stuff. The show was filled with far less wrestling, and the ratings were a lot higher. Now you can, if you can spin it like, well, there's other factors, but if you just take those basic attributes of the show and marry it to the numbers, and take the fact that today there is a lot of wrestling on the show, and regardless of whether you think that's good or not, you sit there and say, well, we had a 30-minute match and 150,000 people stopped watching from the time the match started. I like that. I think that is a significant indicator that, that maybe that did not work. So I said the fun, like guys like me and Vince, they look at us like we're we're off the wall and stuff and everything. But I just say, just marry every argument to the numbers. And like I said, there's too much wrestling on TV these days.
What was another angle you mentioned before? You teased that there was stuff that you and Vince had come up with that nobody even heard about. That
we would always come up with characters that we wanted. We wanted to start doing the. This is in TNA. We needed a confused promoter. We wanted to try to do if you look at the nobody really watched these because they were weekly pay-per-views, but circa 2003 TNA. We were doing the Sports Entertainment Extreme angle with Jeff Jarrett, the SEX, stuff like that. If you watch those shows, those are kind of like they weren't bad shows content-wise. There was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of outside the box things. Well, back then, that's when we wanted to do we wanted to try to find a confused promoter gimmick. We couldn't convince Jeff of it. But we want to start getting some of our crazy characters on the show. Like Wings Piedmont, the evil pilot. Who would also have been Simon Diamond, Pat Kenny. Actually, we had him pegged for Wings Piedmont, the evil pilot. We also had an idea for. Then you got to understand, we're far more politically correct today than we used to be. Over the course of the past 2 years, political correctness in the United States has taken an unbelievable, gotten ridiculous momentum. Okay. So seemingly overnight, it seems like, right? Well, I don't think that our 300-pound our 300-pound Hasidic Jewish tag team, the Jew Tang Clan, would have gotten over quite as well today as it would have been back in the day. But we had an idea for the Samoans always had big guys,
yes.
Stuff like we wanted 2 guys like that size.
Big Jews,
the Jew Tang Clan, and they would be
full
payas.
Yeah.
The
yarmulke.
yarmulke.
Has to stay under in the match. You clip it.
The yarmulke, but they would kind of be thugged out a little bit in the the white shirts would be baggy, stuff. Maybe have but the Jew Tang Clan.
Was there a finisher discussed?
I don't think we got that far.
Okay.
I don't think. But if the but one of the I think one of the first characters that Vince wrote that he wanted to because when TNA first started, I'm not sure if I was writing for the very first shows, but one of the characters he wanted was the wanted 2 guys dressed in just full rubber giant condoms, okay, 2 giant condom outfits, right? And they were going to be the Johnsons, all right, but they were going to be managed by Balls Mahoney, so it's going to be the Johnsons with balls.
This is before the Christian thing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. There have been invasion angles before. Most noteworthy, the missed opportunity, many feel, when WCW was bought by WWE to do a good invasion angle. That both Vince Russo and Jim Cornette, in separate episodes of the show, of course, booked, but you had an idea for an interesting invasion angle of your own. Was this because there were people always talking about invasion angles, or you have a fondness for Close Encounters of the Third Kind? How does this come about?
This is probably my well, you want to introduce? You haven't actually introduced the angle itself, which is what?
What's the alien invasion?
The alien invasion. You make it sound like so. You say that so like you know.
Matter of fact.
I have to be really crazy to even come up with something like that. Now I have a lot of stories to tell about this. Okay, number one. All right, this was when we used to book at the Hyatt, the hotel. Mm-hmm. It was not even a mile. It's a mile from where I lived. So we were booked at 11 o'clock. All right. So I went there and I got there at 11:15. All right, and I had one of those. What'd you call it earlier? Where they had the
flip chart.
The flip chart. Okay, so I got the flip chart ready.
So this is true. We were debating whether the flip chart story was true today.
Flip chart story, 100% sure.
Go ahead.
So I got I wrote alien invasion angle. Okay, this is June. All right. So June, I said this starts with. I'm trying to see. It's very difficult for me to remember this because I kind of try to forget it, you know. But I told everybody this giving. So June, it starts with at the announcer table. Okay, Mike Tenay is giving a review of the show, and I wrote this down.
Is it just funny because it's Mike Tenay? Is that why we're all laughing?
Mike Tenay is watching, and two antenna pop out of his head like a Martian. Okay. Actually, I think I wrote it down. Martian Invasion. That was actually the original thing. It's Martian Invasion angle. Okay. So Mike Tenay. So two antenna pop out of Mike Tenay's head, and he's like, well, like what? So it was revealed. So then Mike.
So right off the bat, week
right, just
one,
in the middle of nowhere.
Mike Tenay's
just in the middle of nowhere.
antenna.
Mike Tenay pops out. Two antenna pop out of Mike Tenay. This is June. Two antenna pop out of Mike Tenay's head.
June. Okay, so okay, that's important. June.
And the two antenna pop out of his head, and he reveals that he's from Mars.
He says this.
Yeah, it's got to be Mars. It was from Mars, okay? So it's from it's from Mars, right? And they're coming to take over, not Earth. They're coming to take over World Championship Wrestling,
right?
Okay, because you can't, they have to have the priorities straight, these Martians, right? Okay? So, so then we flip chart, we go to July, okay?
Okay.
And in July, actually, no, this was, July was the first week, we're in August now, okay? So just major correction.
You really, that's blowing everything. Go ahead.
Okay? So now, we go to August and we slowly reveal, and it's in the middle of their entrances or matches or whatever it is, but more Martians are being revealed as the antenna pop out of their head. Okay, but the Martians these are some of the Martians. Okay, Chris Benoit.
Well.
Okay, he's a Martian.
That would explain a lot.
Okay, Lance Storm is also a Martian.
Does it have anything to do with the demeanor? Am I finding
Chris Jericho then is
oh, well, that's okay.
All right. Okay.
Oh, it's Canada.
So, our brilliant color commentator Mark Madden, okay, has been his ingenious observation over the course of time is saying wait a minute, maybe maybe Canadians are actually Martians, okay? Now, you got to understand, I'm presenting this to the room, to Ed, Vince, Borash, Bob Ryder is in there this week. Bob Ryder started sitting in the meetings back in this Vince's second go around. Bob Ryder, okay, and when I'm presenting this and everybody's just sitting there, everybody is chuckling and laughing, except for Terry Taylor, who is smoke is coming out of his ears. Okay,
but very well dressed.
He's always very well dressed.
Yes.
But he is not entertained by this at all.
Wow.
At all. Okay. So now September and October, all right, we have revealed that all the Canadians are really not from Canada, but they are from Mars, okay? And there is now the Martian faction is being formed, and the initial reaction was that the rest of the WCW were scared, but our Justice League is being formed.
I have questions.
Okay.
Can I answer them here?
Yes.
When they're wrestling, are they still continuing to wrestle as we've always seen them wrestle?
Absolutely.
Or do they start to do different moves?
No. They're like the kind of the body snatcher Martians. You know, they're not like
just like us.
Just like us.
The only thing is now they have to wear antennae.
They've assumed human form. We don't know that much more about them, but they're like the Martians from the old 1950s movies. They have the antenna popping out of their head.
And they're great at hockey.
They love hockey. Okay? So in September and October now, we have started to form our faction of, so basically, then they're white, but it's like the NWO. These guys are like, you know, the Martians are.
How many did you have? How many Canadians?
God, back then I think we had anybody that had any type of like and the only thing about it is that we had to figure out like that because Tenay liked hockey so much that he was like an honorary Canadian. Okay, I don't think we had too many Canadians. But the thing was, this was a really strong, you know, they're Martians. So they have
strength that's beyond. Yeah.
Yes. So now we begin our faction of basically who, you know, yeah. So
is there a name for the opposition of the aliens?
Yeah, the humans.
Humans. Well.
Okay, the humans. Yeah, yes.
What are humans, Alex?
Okay, they're Booker T, Goldberg, and Sting. All right. So, as they are basically wiping out, now I think the thing was that they had a.
That's a very politically correct semblance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone's represented.
So basically, I think maybe Booker T, Goldberg, and Sting were gone at this. Like maybe they weren't around. They were going to be come back because of the Martians were going to be. Like I had a couple angles in there and that thing, you know, but we're leading up to, the humans have formed their team. Okay, and all this leads to, okay, you got to understand, this is back in 2000, right? I said this is all leading up to, and I pulled the September, October, November, December, there's all the, whatever I had, and I pulled back the thing. I go, our first ever, you know, like flagship pay-per-view, and I pulled back the thing, you know, January 1st, 2001, our pay-per-view, A Space Odyssey. So that was what that was like the road to 2001: A Space Odyssey was my Martian invasion angle like that I had all planned out. Okay, it took me a good 10 minutes to probably like go over the whole thing, and after Vince and everyone were just cracking up. Terry Taylor at no point did I don't think he smirked or saw any humor in it at all.
Does he say anything?
Oh, he was just like he's just mad. We're wasting. The meeting just started. He thinks we're wasting time. You know, we haven't even started. So he was furious. He was furious.
What kind of blow-off matches could you have with that? I'm trying to think of the.
I think maybe maybe the Martians were becoming body snatchers too. So maybe we were turning. You know,
turning the rest of the roster.
I think that's what it would have been. They were turning the rest of the roster, so all the guys, you know, like getting the antenna popping up out of their head and everything. Right. So, and I was saying, I was actually telling, like, part of the angles is, guys, we can sell the antenna. Forget. I go, well, that'd be great for gimmicks.
Basically, the NWO out of control.
Yeah. It was the Martian.
NWO on
versus Martians. Yeah, but here's the funny thing about this. So. Everybody in that room knows it was obviously a joke, but of course, Vince. Yeah, I think Vince might have been the leader of the pack again with this. I was like, "Oh, Disco wants to bring in Martians." Okay, he's telling everybody. So, like, you know, he pitches this whole angle of Martian invasion and stuff. And so it became like the wives' tale and the legend of the Martian invasion angle that I actually wanted to bring in Martians to WCW.
Right.
So. Fast forward to when did Vince tell you the story when he was going to go back to Vince in 2002 and they had that conversation? So there was maybe you didn't talk about this. So there was a period of time when we were both out of work. It was 2002, I think it was, and the WWE, like the ratings were going down. Okay, and I was telling Vince was working at the CD warehouse. You know, he wasn't doing nothing. And I would go see him every now and then. I'm like, bro, but why don't you call Vince back up? Why don't you try to get your job back there? Because the ratings, like, from 2001, 2002, they're getting worse, you know? It's just, I mean, like, it was, they're not as bad as they were today, obviously, but there was, like, a considerable free fall to the point that I told Vince, like, it went from, like a 4.9 to a 4.7 to a 4.5 to a 4, like, every week it was just going down and down. And I told him, I said, look, if it gets below a 4.0, we call, and I go, he's like, all right. So, like, it was like a 4.4 the week before. The very next week, it got down to like a 3.9. I was like, wow. I was like, I go, did you see that? I go, it's a 3.9. So he called Vince up. He called Vince McMahon up, and he said he couldn't believe like when Vince sold to him, like Vince, how you doing? He's like, oh Vince, you know how it is, you know. But Vince basically, McMahon was telling Russo, oh the writing's terrible, like the show's going down, and brought Vince back to talk. All right, and it said it went well, right? And so the deal was that Vince was going to go back, and you'll bring me in, like we were going to get the band back together, you know. So he's going to go up to New York. So this is funny. So over the course of him and Vince talking, after like they were kind of agreeing to like come back and something, but now he had to go meet the writers, had to go meet the team, he had to go back up and like meet with everybody, But he said, Vince McMahon, he goes, I told you, he goes, bro, you're not going to believe this. He says, I told Vince about you. And he calls me the next week. It's like, Vince, about your friend Glenn. I don't know, I'm not so sure. I hear he wants to bring Martians into professional wrestling and the Invisible Mass.
It had permeated the business so much
that it got to Vince McMahon, okay? That I was wanting, that Vince Russo's coming back to WWE, and he wants to bring in Glenn Gilberti, who wants to bring Martians. Yeah. So that just shows you what a circus professional wrestling is. I mean,
right.
So
you didn't want to do things like bring roosters and garbage men and pig farmers.
Right.
Good stuff like that.
Right. So then Vince, he was like laughed at me. He goes, Vince, it's not. He was, who told you? He started trying to say, it's not true. That was just obviously a joke and stuff. So he had to explain me to him, right? So then Vince went back up there and he met with the writers and Stephanie, and it just did not go well. It was, they were like very condescending to him, and the meeting was over, and Russo told Vince, he's like, it's not going to work. Because Vince had told me, hey, things are different now. We have a bunch of writers, So it's not going to work. And this is 2002. I'll never forget that because I've heard this quote from Vince, and to this, fast forward to 2015. He said, and this is back when they were doing like 3 nines, all right? He said, Vince, he goes, thank you for giving me the opportunity like to listen to me. He goes, but I'm telling you this as a friend, that with what you have in that room, you will never turn this company around. That was in 2002. Vince repeated that quote to me back then.
So it was actually Vince that Russo made the decision not.
He knew it wasn't going to work, and I guess probably Stephanie had told her that it's not going to. We shouldn't. You know how it is. And then the other funniest thing is like think about this too, and how maybe wrestling might have changed over these years if that meeting had gone better, because. Russo's always judged like this guy that killed the business and everything. If you take what Russo did in WWE, which was take it from like a 1.9 to a 6.5, whatever it was, right? Then he left, right? Went to WCW. Legend has it he epically failed, which he didn't epically fail. He just didn't make it. He just didn't make it significantly better. And just through the years, it's just been, but. Think that a guy that when he wrote for the WWE, based on the merits of his work at the WWE, can't get his job back there, when the last time he worked there, all he did was take it from a 1.9 to a 6.5, he can't get work back there.
because they've gone so far from what the product was,
And he's been
and the philosophy
and he's
of the
been
product.
basically, his name's been tarnished so much that people think
It
you know,
has.
Yeah,
It has.
so
It's kind of become beyond fact.
Yeah.
It's become. Well, this has been educational
well, thank you.
for me, and a lot of fun. Did you have fun?
I had fun. I always have fun going over these crazy.
Great stuff.
Crazy
And you
things.
know, Glenn, you know, the booking and your history and your story history, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to teach me the dance.
Oh, jeez, it's not that hard to do.
So
that-
let's go here. We can finish this.
You gotta do like
We're
this.
getting the
It's
blood
simple.
flowing. How do we
It's
start?
just point the finger
Down?
down here, and then up, and you gotta kick the hip out.
If you've been to
Down,
Oh,
up, down, up, down, up, down.
feel like I'm in Hoboken
down,
all over again, circa
down,
19.
up. John Travolta, baby.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
and thank you for watching.